What's up, Josh Feuerstein here.
Oh, joy of joys. Now I have to deal with fucking Feuerstein.
So I'm here to issue the $100,000 atheist challenge to anybody that could provide me proof or evidence that God does not exist.
Look, Josh, I understand that you don't understand how atheism works, but let's go ahead and hear your pitch for this $100,000 challenge. And maybe we can actually derive some sort of truth or meaning from your fucking pitiful attempt at being religion.
I think it's rather ridiculous that there's been people for a long time that have said that God does not exist, and yet they're unarmed because they have zero evidence and zero proof. How would that ever hold up in a court of law?
Let me tell you how that would work in a court of law. You have to prove your assertion. We aren't making an assertion. Atheists don't make an assertion. We are not sure for a fact if there is a God or not, but we do believe that there is not sufficient fucking evidence. You idiot.
You know, it's funny, I was talking to an atheist the other day, and he told me, he said, I don't believe that there's any such thing as absolute truth. I said, you really believe that? He said, absolutely. I said, therefore, you now have absolute truth.
I think you might be having a problem with the concept of subjective truth and objective truth. There's no such thing as objective truth. See, they slipped that little word believe in there for a very good reason. And so do you. See, they don't believe there is an absolute truth, which in effect means they don't believe in an objective absolute truth. It's not that they're sitting there trying to say, I don't believe that there is a truth from my perspective. It's they don't believe there's a truth from everyone's perspective. And sadly, that actually is the case. And you can't just say, well, at least not with a brain, you can't just say, oh, well, A, then B? Well, that means you're C. No. What you're trying to say is, much like I've had to deal with the feminist movement, if you believe in equality, that makes you a feminist. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't. I believe in equality. I don't believe in the ridiculous third wave movement. And if you'd like to bring that into the world of religion, I'll use the exact same thing that I use with the fucking feminist movement. Just because I believe in a good thing doesn't mean I'm gonna believe in all the ridiculous shit you assert.
If you absolutely believe that there is no such thing as absolute truth, that's exactly what it is. You live in a dichotomy, a paradigm, a problem, and a paradox. You see, if we were to look at absolute truth, and we were to look at the totality of all knowledge, all scientific facts, everything, and we were to be able to draw a circle that would represent it, it would look something like this.
Okay, so let's get started on your atheist challenge. So that circle represents absolute truth. Also, I assume by your perspective, all the knowledge in the universe. Okay, then let's continue.
Broad and expansive and large. And yet it is that if you were to draw a circle of everything that you know, every experience, every scientific fact that you've ever learned, whether in school or study.
Okay, so we're working with my particular knowledge base here. Well, I wouldn't exactly put a speck on there. It'd be a slightly larger circle. But then again, I haven't been through a lot of schooling in my life. Ironically, though, I am ordained. So, interesting that we actually share a similar profession. But here's the thing. If you drew a circle of what we know in all of the science field, the total knowledge of the human race, it would be a much larger circle.
Would probably look something more like this. Now, don't you think it's ironic that there's people that have lived in this little circle their entire life that are trying to claim that there's no God that exists outside of their knowledge?
See, here's this major problem that I have with this particular little thought experiment, because let's face it, that's what this is. And just because it's been bugging me, why the fuck did you not put that dot in the middle? God damn it. Idiot. Anyway, so here's the problem that I have with this entire thought experiment. Yes, me as a person, I have a, well, bigger than that, but a small circle of knowledge. However, humanity itself has a much larger circle. Let's put it at about, well, let's say half of that entire knowledge circle that you've concocted. We have about half of the knowledge required to explain the universe. Here's the problem I see. Don't you think inside the relatively large circle of our entire knowledge of everything, there might be one sliver of physical evidence to an omniscient entity, a god? Don't you think there would be something that indicates his existence in this whole circle that you have proposed forward for me? I mean, it's not that you think that there is this little dot of my personal knowledge or a larger circle of the knowledge of the human race. It's that you're trying to make an argument from ignorance. I don't know, therefore God. I don't know, therefore God has been what cave people used as logic. Now, the thing of it is, despite the fact that we both look like we probably came out of a cave at some point in our lives, I don't know, therefore God is the stupidest argument in the planet. Look at it. Look at your logic, how you are perceiving this. If there is a God, he needs to bitch slap you for making such a pitiful argument.
Therefore, because they've never experienced him, he doesn't exist. Now, the problem with truth and absolute truth is I believe that this generation doesn't like that concept because it means that there's moral law. It means that now that there's something that they will one day have to answer to.
See, here's the sad part about this entire thing. It has nothing to do with the concept of maybe someday I'll have something to answer to. It's the fact that maybe someday you won't. Because, frankly, in this entire video that I've watched so far, which, frankly, is getting too goddamn long, I've decided to cut in quite a few times, so I'm going to let you finish your stupid posturing here in a second. You're an idiot. And the only reason I would ever really want a God to exist is so you could answer to God for your pathetic attempts at justifying him. Or her. Or whatever. Oh, by the way, I'll put a link in the description on how you can be ordained for free. You'll have to actually pay for the physical license, but it's always fun to show them how easy it is to become a man of God through the internet.
In fact, if you were to ask an atheist, I don't think he would ever actually be able to condemn something like the Holocaust and the killing of millions and millions of innocent people. Why? Because he just believes that they're an accident. They're just merely some molecular structure, that they're just part of this scientific thing called evolution.
And Godwin's Law. See, here's the really big problem with that particular argument, since, of course, he decided he had to bring up the Nazis. Every atheist on the planet has every reason to condemn the Holocaust, more so than most Christians. And here's why. Because acts like the Holocaust are incredibly negative for society. It makes us fearful and worry about people. Look at Donald Trump's campaign. People are worried because he has the charisma of a young Hitler. Look at it. Look at it from a perspective of, I wonder, if millions of people just died, would that suck? Would that hurt our economy? Would that hurt our society? Would it make people more wary, or would it make them just paranoid? Would this cause a problem? From an evolutionary standpoint, we are social creatures. We believe that you and me and everybody else have an important function as a cog in the machine of humanity. And stop using the phrase accident. Accident implies intent. What happened was, well, the theory so goes, is shit evolved. It doesn't have anything to do with fucking cosmic accidents. Everything in the universe runs pretty well. Very clockwork-like. And here's the thing. That doesn't imply design.
Survival of the fittest. Well, how then was Hitler just not the fittest? How could you ever condemn something like that? In fact, I would challenge you this. If you were to look around the world in any society, in almost any country, in any sets of laws, murder is something that is illegal. Why is it something that is illegal universally? Because
every war ever started. Honor killings. Executions. Assassinations. Military operations where the main goal is to kill someone who is in an opposing military force. Everything ISIS does. All of these acts of quote-unquote murder are condoned and sometimes considered a good thing. Look at what we did with Saddam Hussein. Look at what we did with Osama bin Laden. These people affected society negatively. Thus, their deaths were considered justified. It's not necessarily condemned universally to kill somebody. And that's not even because it's not wrong. It's because, as a society, we have decided to follow a law of where people are important to our societies. And thus, killing people randomly affects us negatively. There you go. There's your challenge solved there, dumbass.
man knows it's wrong to murder someone else. If we were just some biological concept, and as far as a human being and a man, how would we have that knowledge? Except that the Bible says that God writes those precepts upon our hearts.
Because when you kill somebody, it affects society negatively.
How is it that every society around the world would agree that murder is wrong? In fact, I guarantee that if there were no laws and no government, that you would feel wrong inside of you killing somebody. Why? Because God's written it on your heart. That is why Jesus is the absolute truth.
Look at some of the people throughout history. Some of the, let's say, generals. Some of the, let's say, murderers. Some of the, let's say, crazy people. People who are called sociopaths. They would have absolutely no problem killing thousands of people just for the hell of it. And what are you saying about them? That God just decided not to write that on their particular hearts? Or is it maybe your logic is flawed?
He is the way, the truth, and the life. And I challenge you today to have an honest conversation with him. Maybe for a long time you've kind of put him out of your mind, because to think that there might be a Jesus might mean that there's a heaven or there's a hell, or that there might be some Bible or some law or some book or some set of rules that you might have to live up to. But I challenge you today, if your eternity depends on it, to look into it.
So he goes on to posture and postulate, and it doesn't really fucking matter anything he says because, like I said before, he's an idiot. Alright, so Feuerstein here wants to challenge you to have a conversation with someone you may or may not believe exists. Sure, whatever. Whatever floats your boat. But here's a challenge for you, Mr. Feuerstein. Or Father Feuerstein, whatever the hell you want to be called. Pastor Feuerstein. The fuck ever. I challenge you to think very long and very hard about what you project into society. What is it that you say that is so much more important than what anybody else says? In short, why the fuck should we care? Like, comment, and subscribe if you've liked this video, and I'll see you next time. What, do you expect something else? Fuck you.